What is going on, everyone? Thanks for entering the lobby of Hobbies, where today we're taking a look at a new two-player customizable card game set in this alternate 13th century Asia. This is Worldbreakers from designer Elli Amir, and this one is coming to Kickstarter March 1st. Now, when I say customizable, that means there is no chasing down booster packs trying to find that, super powerful or rare card to build a strong deck. All players will have access to the same card pool, and this one has a little bit of reminiscences of Android Netrunner mixed with some Magic the Gathering and some other card games that you might be aware of. So if you're ready for this one and want to check this out, let's get into it. Alright, so before we get started, let's first give a thanks to Ellie for sending over this prototype copy to us. That way we can check it out, and that way you guys can determine whether or not this game is worthy of your backing on Kickstarter. Understand everything you see is in prototype form, from the card art and components, so anything that is subject to change, follow along with the Kickstarter campaign. The link is going to be down in the description below. But let's talk about Worldbreakers. What are you trying to do? As I was saying, this is set in this alternate late 13th century Asia universe, and you are taking on the role of one of 4 Worldbreakers. Now, the base box comes with 4 Worldbreakers, and each one comes with their own pre-constructed deck. Now, there are various forms to play this game using not only the pre-constructed decks. You can draft the various cards to create your 30 card pool or your 30 card starting deck, or you can even, just customize your own deck according to the deck construction rules in the rulebook. But we're going to just talk about this game briefly, talk about how a turn structure works, all using the standard pre-constructed decks in the box. In Worldbreakers, you are trying to utilize your followers in your guild, you are playing various events, and you are also trying to develop locations, all while trying to gain the most power. This game isn't about depleting your opponent's life total down to 0, it's all about how you can gain 10 power before your opponent. Now, this game has what we call a mana pool, or in Netrunner you call it credits, but here it's a mysterious element or substance called mythium. Now, your Worldbreaker is trying to harness this mythium and utilize it to send their troops into battle, or their followers into battle, to not only develop locations but protect those locations from your opponent destroying them. And we'll talk about briefly why you want to protect those various locations. But these events, these followers that you have, these locations are going to not only maybe grant you more mythium, but also will grant you the power you need to have the victory. So let's take it to the table just to go over how a turn structure works and the different things you can do on your turn, and then you guys can determine if this is something you want to back. At the start of the game, players will choose one Worldbreaker and their 30 card associated deck. Players are going to take their Worldbreaker card and place it face up in their play area. That Worldbreaker is going to display the 3 signature cards in that Worldbreaker's deck. It will also display an ability that that Worldbreaker has, along with the guild that that Worldbreaker is aligned to. The 4 guilds in the game are Earth, Stars, Moon, and Void. After placing their Worldbreaker face up, they're going to shuffle their 30 card deck and draw a hand of 5 cards. At this time, they can choose to mulligan any cards that they want to, redrawing back up to 5, and they will take a pool of 5 mythium to start the game. A round tracker will be placed in the center of both players, with a random player being determined. Play is broken up into rounds. With each round, players will be taking 4 actions, and the actions will be taken alternately. One player will act, and then the opposing player will act. Players have the choice of 7 different actions that they can do on their turn. The first is to gain 1 mythium. The second thing they can do on their turn is draw a card. The third action they can choose to do is pay 2 mythium to gain 1 standing in a guild of their choice. Now, guild standing is very important because certain cards require a standing of a specific amount to put that card into play. The fourth thing that players can do on their turn is play a card. Now, some cards are free to play, while others might have a mythium cost associated with it, but again, some cards might have a standing requirement to put into play as well. Players can play various cards such as followers, events, or locations. When players play a follower out, they'll pay the cost and place that card into the battle zone. They'll activate any abilities when that card comes into play, and play will turn over to the next player. If they choose to play an event, they will do the event's ability and then discard that event. And if they choose to play a location card, they'll play that location face up into their play area where it will stay, and they will place staging counters onto that card. The next thing a player can do is develop a location. When players develop a location, they'll look at the topmost staging token that is on their card, discard that token, and do the staging action at that location. Some actions may require players to spend mythium to do something. Some will actually allow players to gain mythium, while others will just simply gain players' power. On their turn, players can also activate an action or an ability on a specific card or follower, or even their Worldbreaker. Lastly, players can choose to attack. During their attack, players can declare a set number of attackers and exhaust those attackers. Now, this is when opponents can choose to block. Opponents can declare their blockers, and they will resolve their attacks and any abilities on those cards. Now, attackers and defenders will deal their damage simultaneously, and after the attack is resolved, players will look at the unblocked attackers. Any unblocked attackers will go through and hit the opponent. When they hit the opponent, they will gain 1 power, and they may choose to attack a location if their opponent has one, and when this happens, the opponent will remove the topmost stage counter at that location, and that ability will not be triggered. During the round, players will take alternating actions, either playing cards, gaining mythium, gaining standing, and the like, or attacking, until all players have spent their 4 actions during that round. At the end of a round, we proceed into the rally phase, where players will activate any rally abilities on any cards that are in play. They will then check for victory to determine if any one player has 10 power or more. If one player does, that player is declared the winner. If there is a tie or no players have 10 power, play will continue on into the next round. Players will then ready any exhausted followers. They will gain 2 mythium, they'll draw a card, and then they will flip over the round tracker. This means that the player who ended the previous round will become the first player of the upcoming round, and play will continue until all players go back and forth attacking, gaining power, until when that check for victory happens during the rally phase, one player is determined the victor. Alright, so let's briefly go over some of the keyword terms that you're going to come across in Worldbreakers. The first is bloodshed. What this means is that when a follower with that ability attacks alone, you're going to be able to place a set number of wounds on an opposing follower. The next ability is Fortify Location. This allows players to place a fortification token on one of their locations, and when that location is damaged, instead of removing a staging token, you would instead remove the fortification token. The next ability is Hidden, which means that that specific location cannot be damaged during an opposing player's attack. The next keyword is Overwhelm. When a follower with Overwhelm is blocked and that overwhelming attacker kills or knocks out the opposing blocker, the attacking player will gain 1 power. The next ability is Seek, which means that this will allow players to draw from their deck until they have found a card that Seek ability was looking for. The next is Stationary. This means that followers with that ability are not allowed to attack. So there you have it. That is Worldbreakers from designer Elli Amir. A little bit of how the gameplay works, a little bit of some of the keyword terms you're going to come across on some of the cards. I know there's another keyword term called Migrate that allows you to either gain standing in a specific guild or spend standing in that guild to be able to trigger an ability. But through and through, this is a dueling card game back and forth where one player is trying to become the victor, a la Magic the Gathering, Android Netrunner, maybe some others that you might be familiar familiar with? And if so, drop some of those games down in the comments below. I'd love to talk with you about it. But I want to thank you guys for coming through while I shared this game with you. Hopefully you discovered something worth checking out, maybe something worth backing on Kickstarter. I'll leave that up to you. But again, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.